Today I have a first look review for you of the new second generation of Prime Pro media players and mixer from Denon DJ. Now I'm here in the Denon DJ demonstration rooms headquarters, so this is not our full review of these units. This is after an hour of messing around with them and looking firsthand at the differences, because of course you need to see these things to really start seeing what's changed. So if you're thinking of buying the new Denon DJ units as opposed to the older ones, this will hopefully help you make that decision. Of course, the older ones are a little bit cheaper now. But also, if you're new to this system, I'll give you a brief overview of it. I'm not going to do a full talk through of everything that's going on here, because we've done a reasonably good job of that on our X1800 review and our SC6000 and 5000M reviews. So you can go and look at those as a bit of background material if you are completely new to this system. We're going to concentrate on what's changed. So let's start off by looking at the players. So we've got both of the new players here. This is the SC6000M, the motorized version, which is signified by the big M here. And this is the standard, if you like, version. There's a slight price difference between these two, but really which one you go for is going to be dependent upon your DJ style, of course. So what are the big things that have changed? Well, the first big thing that's changed is, of course, this screen. I mean, you look at both of these players and we've got an old, battle-weary, 3 years on and still going strong SC5000 here. You can see the difference in screen is exactly the difference between an iPad mini and an iPad. So you've got this huge change in screen real estate there, which is really nice. Now, a couple of the things that they've done on this in order to make use of that are, well, clearly it's bigger anyway, right? So you've just got more room. But if you click over to your library and then click the button at the top, you get a choice of the old view, but just bigger. Great for lazy eyes or old eyes. But if you are someone who would rather have more of your tracks showing, because one of the big things about DJing without a laptop, of course, is on a laptop you get to see a lot more of your playlists on the bigger screens that laptops have. Well, you can do that as well. So we're looking there at a view where you're seeing, 10 tracks instead of 6 or 7, which you see when it's set up that way. So that choice is yours. One thing I would like to have seen was more use of this screen real estate, because apart from that switch into seeing more of your library, they haven't really added too much else that you couldn't do on the old screen, so it's just bigger. So I would hope over time that as they upgrade the firmware, they'll make more use of the bigger screen. We're used to apps kind of resizing to make use of the real estate on our iPhones and iPads, aren't we? So to see more use made of that would be good in the future. All right, so the big screens are really nice. They're still, let's go on to this one, you can still pinch and zoom, and it's glass, it's not plastic, it doesn't kind of like bend when you touch it. So all that good stuff is still there from the originals. All right then, so as well as the bigger 10.1 inch screens, another thing that's immediately apparent when you actually play with these things is the changes or the undoubted improvements to the jog wheels. So over here, the jog wheel on the standard non-motorized version, on the, I'm talking in a little bit of detail now about the feel, because of course jog wheels are very, very important to DJs. The feel of the old jog wheel, while there was nothing wrong with it, and there is nothing wrong with it, it feels like a big version of the jog wheels that you get on pretty much all DJ controllers to date. In other words, it's smooth, very silent, and that's kind of it. It's not really got much weight to it, not got much inertia, or, when you clunk the door on a really nice car, it's kind of like, it's got weight, but it also feels quality. There's none of that on here. It's just kind of light. Now on the new one, it's different. On the new one, it feels like there's more weight to it. It's smoother. And when you add in the wheel adjust, which has been improved, the wheel adjust was a bit clunky on the old one. The wheel adjust is a lot smoother here. When you add in that, you really can set this to how you want it. And the best way of describing it is it just feels like closing an expensive car door, frankly, compared to this one. That's the best analogy I could come up with. It's really nice. Now, while the jog wheel, kind of the hole is the same size, more or less, the jog wheel itself, the top surface is a lot bigger. So you've got more to head for when you're going in to control it from the top surface there as well. The central display hasn't changed, it's the same information there. One thing that has changed is that there's a bit more subtlety on the LED ring around the outside. So one bit of feedback from a lot of DJs on the old versions was that there was a lot of garishness going on in the lights. That's kind of been toned down a bit here. And while we're talking about that, it's also visible on the buttons. The buttons have been improved, they're a bit more tactile, but the LEDs are just in a small area as opposed to being the whole light. And also the lighting on all these individual buttons, it's just the word and it's not bleeding out from the outside as well. Again, it's subtle. You'll notice that the chrome has gone here. The whole thing just feels a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more understated. I mean, these are small things, but that is something that's changed. All right, so we've talked about the jog wheel on this one. What about over here? Well, it's still really nice to use. This motorized jog wheel is still, you know, it just feels like immediately like you're using slip mats and vinyl, which is of course what it's meant to feel like. One thing that has changed is that, hey, this comes off really easily now, so there's no need to grab your little Allen key to get this off. It's simple enough. But also, when you click it back on by pressing the little button there, you can kind of choose whether you have it very loose or push it down a bit harder, so you've got a bit of control over how that feels as well, which is a nice improvement for scratch DJs there. Just subtle improvements here on this, and again, the ring around the outside a little bit more understated compared to how it was on the last one. All right then, so we've covered what you can see. What's changed that you can't see? Well, to start with, and a really big change actually that nearly slipped under the radar for me, is that these have got a HDD drive bay underneath them, which is like the Prime 4, but it hasn't been in these players until now. So that means that you can put a really massive hard drive into one of your players. Of course, you network them up and you don't need it in the other one, and have all your music collection on them. So for mobile DJs and DJs, and maybe resident DJs in clubs who play there every week and the club has its own music, look, you can have the music built into the player, which is really cool. So there's no need to have USBs and SD cards if you are in that situation. Just have all your music on the player, which is awesome. So that's the changes that you can see and that you can't see underneath the new hard drive. What about the changes in the way it works with software? Well, this is constant evolution. There is a new improved CPU in these things, which means that stuff becomes more and more smooth, it becomes faster. For instance, plugging in a library from Rekordbox worked on the old ones, it works even more smoothly and even quicker on the new ones, which means it'll analyze for your cue points, your loops, your playlists, they just all appear. That's really cool. You can plug this in immediately to a laptop with Serato, not at launch, but very soon afterwards, and it will just work like one really big, expensive, awesome controller with Serato screens and all, right? So you've got that compatibility as well. It won't do that with Traktor at the moment. Hopefully that could be added in the future, and presumably getting that to work with Rekordbox is a pipe dream for obvious commercial reasons, but you know, you can plug it in with the most popular software that people are likely to want to plug in, namely Scratch DJs, of course, laptop software, Serato, off you go. Now, when it comes to analyzing in Engine Prime, it's a different story, and it's a good story because Engine Prime software, again, talking to the guys from Denon DJ here this weekend, it's clear that software is a really big focus and there's a lot of work going into Engine Prime. You can plug in an import from Serato, from Traktor, and from Rekordbox, and of course from iTunes, straight into Engine Prime, output to a USB or an SD and plug into these, and it will all work off the cuff. So it's certainly getting there with universality and with compatibility, not harmed in any way at all by the improvements in the CPUs inside these things. So a solid piece of evolution. If you're thinking about whether to spend a little bit more for these, and they're not actually hugely expensive in the big scheme of things compared to some rivals, these are $14.99 and $16.99 for the motorized version in dollars. If you're thinking of whether to go for this or to go for the, no doubt, slightly cheaper nowadays 5000s, well, I think it's more a case of how much are you going to feel disadvantaged having a smaller screen and having the old style jog wheels, which feel lovely, by the way. You know, it's probably a good idea to just have a play with them and see whether your budget's going to go to the newer ones. Now I want to move on and talk about the mixer. This is the X1850, and frankly, it's a new look mixer. For that reason, it's a new look mixer. It looks nicer sat between these two things. These have had the subtle changes to the way they look and the way the lights work and the way they feel, and so has this. They've got slightly more visible EQs, for instance, so they're easier to kind of throw your hand out and hit first time because of the white rings underneath the bottom of them. But really, it's a cosmetic thing. But there are two changes I want to bring your attention to, which I think are really nice and I think DJs are going to appreciate. The first one is that the effects are now quantized. So you can easily head into the settings and say, look, I don't want you to listen. I don't want this mixer to listen to the music and work out the BPM and work from there. I want you to take it from the beat grids. And if you do that, then what you get is the effects starting bang on the one beat when you kick them in, which is just nice and tight. And you can set the quantized level inside the unit as well there. So quantized effects is one thing that they've added here. Another thing that they've added here is a limiter on the overall volume of the effect. So if you've got an effect kicking in there that's really loud and it's just pushing the volume into the red and into the red, it will limit it for you and make sure it all sounds nice. So there's two new effects as well. And the new effects are Echo Hold and Pumper. Now I've been playing with these effects. Let's have a little look at them. So Echo Hold, I'll try and describe this one to you. It's like a cross between an echo and a loop roll, in that it'll actually sample the length that you want to echo, sample it rather than just layer it over the top of the track. It's easy for me just to show you. We'll turn it on. So what you're hearing there is the sample looping, right? I can turn that off. There's my sample. And how long it'll carry on for, the decay, in other words, is determined by where you have the effects amount set. So it's hard to explain. It's easy when you use it. You can kind of work out what's going on with it. And it's nice. It's a nice new little effect. And again, you've got the ability to choose quarter of a beat, half a beat, 2 beats or whatever on how you use that. The other one is Pumper. And this is like a side chain. This is kind of like a live side chain effect. So again, easy for me just to show you. So it kind of like dips down on that one beat and comes back in between the peaks on the waveform. Really nice for mixing. Give you a bit of space when you're mixing two tracks. So producers used to using side chaining will like that. So let me use these headphones to show you another new feature, which is track preview. By hitting the artwork, you can jump through the track. I'll hold those near my microphone and hear where you are in the track. And if you put the fader up by accident, it stops immediately, so the audience is never going to hear that. One thing I wanted to show you actually while we're playing a bit of music is we've got a scratch track on here, and it's just a classic scratch set that's got 4 or 5, in fact 8 scratch samples here. And look at the screen here. Let's go. You see how easy it is for a DJ to see? They're all labeled up and it's so big. Let's go! Wow. It's really nice, and I can see scratch DJs really loving that because you basically got a chunk for each of your samples, and you can just hit the cue point and they're going to trigger there. On the old screen you had all that, but it was just small, and it was kind of like if you're me, you'd be like, which one is it? Now there's none of that. You can kind of sit back. That's the one I'm going for. So an advantage of the bigger screen there. Okay, I think we've covered everything that I wanted to do on a first look. There'll be a full review coming of these units, of course, when we've had time to play with them properly. Let's talk a little bit about what this means. This is now second generation, and second generation means a lot of commitment and a lot of R&D around these products. And so you can invest in this system now knowing that there's going to be a third generation and a fourth generation, and that this is part of a bigger roadmap. And I think that's one of the more exciting things here. We can see this developing, but at the same time, we can also see that the older stuff is part of the family, and it's not just this year's model, the old one's obsolete now. This is developing into a new ecosystem, of which these are the latest incarnations. Are the screens going to keep getting bigger? Who knows? Maybe we'll have a 15-inch screen on them in the future. It certainly feels very, very nice having a big screen. Life's all about screens nowadays, right? You get a new car and the screens are getting bigger and bigger, and then the phones are getting bigger. Everyone likes to have big interactive touch screens. It's the way the world's going. And to see them on DJ gear of this size like this does feel quite revolutionary. Everything else I'd say is evolution. The jog wheels just feel nicer. The overall feel is more streamlined and more refined, and some of the garishness is probably the word of the colours and the lights flashing at you on the old stuff has been toned down on these. A little bit more professional feeling overall. So that's our first look at the new Denon DJ X1850, the SC6000 and the SC6000M. Now I've got it all out in the end. Here at Digital DJ Tips, if you've got any questions, if you've got any feedback, underneath is the place to leave that, and we'll get back to you. There's a full review of this over on the Digital DJ Tips website, so go and read what I've just been talking about over there. Meanwhile, people, get good, get out there and make the moments. and we'll see you again soon.